again. Here we are, back to our reading of The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Today we're going to finish Chapter 2. It'll only be a short little reading today. Chapter 2 is called Roast Mutton, and if you remember, we got to the point where the dwarves and the trolls had a terrible barney, or a fight, around the campfire. We're about to pick it up here. I'll just read you a little bit, about a paragraph or so before we start with today's reading, where we got to last time. Now, picture, if you will, the dwarves have all been captured by the trolls except for Bilbo and someone else who I think we will be meeting again. This was the end of our last reading. And so the fight ended. A nice little pickle they were all in now, all neatly tied up in sacks with 3 angry trolls, and 2 with burns and bashes to remember, sitting by them, arguing whether they should roast them slowly, or mince them fine and boil them, or just sit on them one by one and squash them into jelly. And Bilbo, up in a bush, with his clothes and his skin torn, not daring to move for fear they should hear him. And here's where we start today's reading. It was just then that Gandalf came back, but no one saw him. The trolls had just decided to roast the dwarves now and eat them later. That was Bert's idea, and after a lot of argument they'd all agreed to it. "No good roasting of me now. It'd take all night," said a voice. Bert thought it was William's. "Don't start that argument all over again, Bill," he said, "or it will take all night." "Who's arguing?" said William, who thought it was Bert that had spoken. "You are," said Bert. "You're a liar," said William, and so the argument began all over again. In the end they decided to mince them fine and boil them. So they got a great black pot and they took out their knives. "No good boiling 'em. We ain't got no water, and it's a long way to the well and all," said a voice. Bert and William thought it was Tom's. "Shut up," said they, "or we'll never have done. And you can fetch the water yourself if you say any more." "Shut up yourself," said Tom, who thought it was William's voice. "Who's arguing but you, I'd like to know?" "You're a booby," said William. "Booby yourself," said Tom, and so the argument began all over again, and went on hotter than ever until at last they decided to sit on the sacks one by one and squash them and boil them next time. "Who shall we sit on first?" said the voice. "Better sit on the last fellow first," said Bert, whose eye had been damaged by Thorin. He thought Tom was talking. "Don't talk to yourself," said Tom. "But if you wants to sit on the last one, sit on him. Which is he?" "The one with the yellow stockings," said Bert. "Nonsense. The one with the grey stockings," said a voice like William's. Bert said, "I made sure it was yellow." "Yellow it was," said William. "Then why did you say it was grey for?" said Bert. "I never did. Tom said it." "That I never did," said Tom. "It was you." 2 to 1, so shut your mouth," said Bert. "Who are you talking to?" said William. Now stop it," said Tom and Bert together. "The night's getting on, and dawn comes early. Let's get on with it." "Dawn take you all, and be stoned to you," said a voice that sounded like William's, but it wasn't. For just at that moment the light came over the hill, and there was a mighty twitter in the branches. William never spoke, for he stood, turned to stone, as he stooped, and Bert and Tom were stuck like rocks as they looked at him. And there they stand to this day, all alone, unless the birds perch on them. For trolls, as you probably know, must be underground before dawn, or they go back to the stuff of the mountains they were made of, and never move again. That's what happened to Bert and Tom and William. "Excellent," said Gandalf, as he stepped out from behind a tree and helped Bilbo to climb down out of the thorn bush. Then Bilbo understood. It was the wizard's voice that had kept the trolls bickering and quarrelling until the light came and made an end of them. The next thing was to untie the sacks and let out the dwarves. They were nearly suffocated and very annoyed. They'd not at all enjoyed lying there listening to the trolls making plans for roasting them and squashing them and mincing them. They had to hear Bilbo's account of what had happened to him twice over before they were satisfied. "It's a silly time to go practising pinching and pocket-picking," said Bombur, "when what we wanted was fire and food." "And that's just what you wouldn't have got of these fellows with a struggle in any case," said Gandalf. "Anyhow, you're wasting time now. Don't you realise that the trolls must have a cave or a hole dug somewhere near to hide from the sun in? We must look for it." They searched about and soon found the marks of troll stony boots going away through the trees. They followed the tracks up the hill until, hidden by bushes, they came to a big door of stone leading to a cave. But they could not open it. Not though they all pushed while Gandalf tried various incantations. "Would this be any good?" asked Bilbo, when they were getting tired and angry. "I found it on the ground where the trolls had their fight." He held out a largish key. Though no doubt William had thought it very small and secret, it must have fallen out of his pocket very luckily before he was turned to stone. "Why on earth didn't you mention it before?" they cried. Gandalf grabbed it and fitted it into the keyhole. Then the stone door swung back with one big push, and they all went inside. There were bones on the floor and a nasty smell was in the air. But there was a good deal of food jumbled carelessly on shelves and on the ground, among an untidy litter of plunder, of all sorts, from brass buttons to pots full of gold coins standing in a corner. There were lots of clothes, too, hanging on the walls. Too small for trolls, I'm afraid. I'm afraid they belonged to their victims, and among them were several swords of various makes, shapes and sizes. Two caught their eyes particularly because of their beautiful scabbards and jewelled hilts. Gandalf and Thorin each took one of these, and Bilbo took a knife in a leather sheath. It would have made only a tiny pocket knife for a troll, but it was as good as a short sword for the hobbit. "These look like good blades," said the wizard, half drawing them, looking at them closely. "They were not made by any troll, nor by any smith among men, in these parts and days, but when we can read the runes on them, we shall know more about them." "Let's get out of this horrible smell," said Feely. So they carried out the pots of coins and such food as was untouched and looked fit to eat, also one barrel of ale, which was still full. By the time they felt like breakfast, and being very hungry, they did not turn their noses up at what they had got from the troll's larder. Their own provisions were very scanty. Now they had bread and cheese and plenty of ale and bacon to toast in the embers of the fire. After that they slept, for their night had been disturbed, and they did nothing more till the afternoon. Then they brought up their ponies and carried away the pots of gold and buried them secretly not far from the track by the river, putting a great many spells over them, just in case they ever had the chance to come back and recover them. When that was done, they all mounted once more and jogged away again on the path towards the east. "Where did you go to, if I may ask?" said Thorin to Gandalf as they rode along. "To look ahead," said he. "And what brought you back just in the nick of time?" "Looking behind," said he. Exactly, said Thorin. But could you be more plain? I went on to spy out our road. It will soon become dangerous and difficult. Also, I was anxious about replenishing our small stock of provisions. I had not gone very far, however, when I met a couple of friends of mine from Rivendell. Where's that? Asked Bilbo. Don't interrupt now, said Gandalf. You will get there in a few days now, if we're lucky, and find out all about it. As I was saying, I met two of Elrond's people. They were hurrying along for fear of the trolls. It was they who told me that 3 of them had come down from the mountains and settled in the woods, not far from the road. They'd frightened everyone away from the district, and they had waylaid strangers. I immediately had a feeling that I was wanted back. Looking behind, I saw a fire in the distance, and made for it. So now you know. Please be more careful next time, or we shall never get anywhere. Oh, thank you, said Thorin. Which now brings us to the end of Chapter 2. Chapter 3 will be next, and Chapter 3 is called A Short Rest. Bye for now.